Hello everyone, welcome back to Chart Engineers. It's Litz, and today we're just gonna go over another weekly market recap, and this is from the week commencing the 19th of April 2021. So firstly, we'll just start on the daily time frame, and we see that this is the start of the week, so the 19th, and we see that price is extremely bullish on EURUSD, just pushing up. So coming into the week, we will be confident that price is bullish, as we can see it just keeps going up. And then I'll go to the 4-hour time frame, and we will start here. So firstly, as soon as we woke up, so from the 2 a.m. till the 6 a.m. candle, we would have seen that there was a H4 liquidity raid, and there was a H4 fair value gap over here. So this would give us confidence to take any longs. So we'll go down to the H1 time frame, and I'll just put on the kill zone indicator. So from as soon as 7 a.m. starts, we fill the FVG on the H4, so we can now delete that, and we see that price rallied up. So we'll just look on the 5-minute for any entries. So here we are, we just want to look for some M5 raids to the bottom side, so we can get in long positions. So a fractal lows here, but does not get raided. And we see that there's no M5 raids at all to take any longs. There was a few M1 plays, so M1 breaker zones and raids and MSBs, but for now I'm just focusing on the 5-minute raids. So during London session, we didn't have any M5 raids to the bottom side, so there was no entries during London. So then I'd get off charts at 10, and before I get back on charts before 1, I would then just go on the H4 and H1 and mark out anything that I see. So here we have a big fair value gap on the H4, and the same fair value gap on the H1. So because of this fair value gap, I would be confident in taking short positions, as there's a lot of liquidity in this fair value gap. So I wouldn't really need a daily H4 or H1 raid, as price has been extremely bullish all London session. So we should expect at least a little pullback in the New York session to at least fill the FVG. But as we see, that FVG does not get filled on this day, but we do actually have our pullback. So I'd go to the 5-minute time frame and start to look for raids to the top side. So this is when the New York session starts, and we have this fractal high over here, and we see that we actually get a liquidity raid over here at 1:30 p.m. So now that we've marked out the M5 liquidity raid, we can go to the 1-minute time frame, and on the 1-minute time frame we'll just mark out our breaker zone. So it would be from this candle over here to the highest point, and our market structure break would be this fractal low, which happened before the raid. So bearish structure break, price breaks below. I will set my limit at this breaker zone, and we see that this trade was actually a loss. So the first trade of the week is a loss, but we did have a lot of confluences to take it, and we see that price actually did drop, so our direction was correct, but our entry was just a bit too early. So because I take 2 trades per day, I will continue to look for my next trade, and I'm still bearish because of the big fair value gap. So here we've got a fractal high, we get a raid, but there would be no MSB on the M1, so you don't need to zoom in for that. And I'm just continually looking for a liquidity raid to the top side. We get a small one over here, but that's after 5 PM, so I'm not on charts. So on the Monday we've only taken one trade, which is a loss. So yeah, a very dry week, start to the week I mean, but we know the setup happens a lot, so at the end of the day you'll just want to check your daily, see that nothing's changed, price is still extremely bullish. Then go down to the 4 hour, and we still got this fair value gap below, so we'll just stretch that out until the Tuesday. And then we also create a small fair value gap over here. If you can see it, just mark it out. So fair value gap again. So even though price is looking extremely bullish, we've got two fair value gaps to the downside. So I'll go down to the 1 hour time frame, and so here's a fair value gap. It's on the H1 also. So here it is. So at 7 AM I am bearish straight away because of the two fair value gaps below. So go down to the 5-minute time frame, and you just want to look for your top side M5 raids to fill these two FVGs. So we've got one over here. So M5 liquidity raid, M5 raid with the FVG below. So now that we've got a raid, as soon as London Open starts, we'll then go to the 1-minute time frame, and on that time frame you just want to mark out your market structure break and your breaker zone. So your breaker zone would be this level, and your market structure break would be at this fractal low. So market structure break, and we see that we break structure over here, and then price does not come back to tag you at your breaker zone. So this trade goes without us, and then it fills the FVG. So then I would remove my limit because of the FVG fill, because once the FVG gets filled, price will usually reverse in the opposite direction. So we were bound to get a reaction from this FVG, so I would have moved my limit on this short. So even if we got tagged in later, which would have been a stop out, we would avoid that loss. So then I'll just show you the FVG gets filled, and we have a strong rejection from it. So I'll just delete this one, and then we still have this big fair value gap below over here. Just refine it to the H1 fair value gap. So we've got this big H1 fair value gap below, so I'm still bearish because of this fair value gap. So back to your 5-minute time frame, and what you want to do, just like we did here, just mark out your top side liquidity raid on the M5. So we've got one over here, but there was no 1-minute structure break and the 1-minute breaker zone, so there was not a trade. So you're just waiting, just need to be patient. And then we've got fractal high here, and we see that we have a liquidity raid. So then we'll just zoom into the 1 minute again and see if we get an entry for shorts. So here's our breaker zone. So here's the liquidity raid. Mark out your breaker zone and your structure break. So there's your bearish structure break, and you see we would break structure at 9:54 and our entry would be at 9:55. So it's before 10, so the trade is valid because we stopped trading at 10. So our entry would be here with our TP at 3R, and you see that during the times we don't trade, we actually hit our TP. So that's +3 for this day so far, and it was -1 for Monday. So far for the week we're up +2, and then we will also need to trade the New York session. So like I said before, once you're back at charts before London, I mean New York, then you would just want to check your H4 and your H1 again, and we would see that price, not much has changed on the H4. We've still got that fair value gap below, so just want to check the H1 then, and you would see that we actually have a order block over here. So H1 order block, and that's the order block because it broke structure on the H1 over here. So here's our H1 market structure break, which just indicates that we are actually bearish. But although we've got a structure break over here, we also have a H1 raid that occurred over here. So here's your H1 liquidity raid, and because we've broken structure and it's created this order block, you can assume that price will do some kind of RTO or return to the order block or return to origin and come back to here before we get a reaction again. So we would, so because it's a liquidity raid, any longs would be valid. So just go down to the 5 minute again. So we've got this H1 liquidity raid over here. We've got this raid over here. Not sure what's wrong with the indicator, cause New York session actually starts here, so the indicator is bugging out right now. But we have a liquidity raid on the M5 during our session times after the H1 liquidity raid. So then we've got H1 and M5 liquidity raid, so 2 confluences. So you can go to your M1 time frame. Yeah, so you can go on your M1 time frame and you want to mark out your breaker zone and your structure break. So I'll mark out the structure break in red. So here's our breaker zone, price breaks above and you get your entry at 217. Let's just see if it actually hits 3R though. So this would be your high time frame area, your H1 order block, in which we could get a reaction from. So 3R, we see that price actually hit 3R, so these longs would be valid if you took them. So for this day you would have a win over here and a win over here, so +6R there. But if you did not take these longs because price is actually bearish and you weren't comfy taking those longs, there were also another setup. So back to your 5-minute time frame, we see that price is in the H1 order block, and you just want to look for your M5 liquidity rates. So we've got one over here, but there was no MSB, and then we've got another one over here. So this is a fractal high. We rate it at 405. Go down to your 1 minute again. Yep, so here's a liquidity raid. Mark out your structure break, which would be over here. So that's your market structure break to the downside over here, and then your breaker zone would be here. So here we've got two confluences, the H1 order block and then your M5 raid, M1 MSB and M1 breaker zone, and see that we get our entry over here, stops above, TP at 3R, and you see that price hits our TP. So if you didn't take this trade, you would have got another win over here. So that would potentially be a 9R day because of 3 wins. But if you only took 1, then it's 3R. If you took 2, then 6R. And then the loss on Monday. So the week would be plus 5R for me because I take 2 trades per day. So then that's the end of the day. You just want to check your your daily and your H4 and your H1 again. Again, not much has changed except we have a FVG on the daily now, but it's the same one as the H4 and the H1. So I'll just keep I'll just mark out the daily instead. So now we'll move on to the Wednesday. Go down to your H4. We see that price at the start of the Wednesday has not yet touched the daily FVG. So because of that daily FVG and H4 and H1 FVG, we would actually still be bearish. So go down to H1, and what you just want to mark out any liquidity raids that have happened during Asia. So we've got one over here. So liquidity raid at 1 AM, which just indicates that price is still bearish. Then you would, so at the start of London, you just want to mark out your H1 liquidity raid and then go down to your 5-minute time frame, and you will just be looking for M5 liquidity raids. So I think we've got one over here. So we've got one over here as soon as London Open starts, so at 7:10, and because we are bearish, we will then go to the 1-minute time frame and just look for your breaker zone and 1-minute structure break. So here's the highest point and there's a bearish candle before it, so my breaker zone would be from here up here and my structure break would be over here. Just mark it out in red. So M5 raid, M1 breaker zone, M1 MSB, but we see that it does actually tag you in, but I wouldn't have been in this trade as I trade mostly my FTMO account, so I'm not going to count this one as spread would have not tagged me into this trade. So I'm not really counting that one as a trade that I would take, as I would have got swerved. But I'm sure on IC markets where you have zero spread, you would be able to get in. But for me, it's not really a trade because I wouldn't be able to get in myself. So then we see that price is just bearish for the rest of London. Don't know why my indicator's bugging. I'll just remove it for now. So yeah, from 7 AM we're just bearish and we have no more M5 structure. I mean liquidity rates. Just wait until 10 AM. So 10 AM you can get off charts. There are no more trades in this area, and you want to be back at 1. So over here you're back, and you want to check your 4 hour and your 1 hour like always. We see that price has basically filled the daily FVG. So yeah, price has filled it basically. So we would be looking at this candle. So all this hasn't happened yet. So price has filled at least 50% of the daily FVG. So we would count it as being filled. So I can just remove it, and because we know that an FVG has been filled, we are likely to get a reversal or at least a big reaction. And then we see that price is failing to close below this low. So where would 1 PM be? Yeah, 1 PM is here. So 2 candles have failed to close below this fractal low. So we've got H1 liquidity raid, and we would also mark out this fair value gap over here on the H1. So fair value gap. So we got a lot of confluences to take any longs. We got daily FVG filled, H1 FVG above, and a H1 liquidity raid. You want to go to a 5-minute time frame then. So where's 1 PM? Yeah, 1 PM's over here. So at 1:05 we get our first liquidity raid, and you'll also notice that price is very tight in this area, just ranging. So when price is ranging like this, I would use the M1 raid candles instead of the full breaker zone, as price is very tight. So using the raid candle, we're more likely to hit our TP. So M5 liquidity raid, M1 market structure break to the top side, and then you want to mark. So here's the full breaker zone, but because price is just ranging, I'm in a tight range, I would then just mark out the raid candle, so which is the lowest candle. So here it is. Stretch it out, and we see that we get tagged in at 140, 139. So minimum 2 pip stops. So we get tagged in, and within like 5-6 minutes we've hit our 3R TP. So that's the first win of this day. And you see that price hasn't reached the fair value gap yet, So I'm still looking for longs. And then we have the exact same setup occur again. So from here, no more liquidity rates to the bottom side until we get one over here. Go down to your 1 minute. And because the range is very tight, I'm just entering off the raid candle again, which would be over here. And I think a lot of us took this trade actually, because there was a lot of confluences behind it. So here's your M5 raid, your structure break over here, and then your M1 raid candle. That's 3.5 pips. I usually just round up in case price comes in and stops me out before actually going higher. And we see that price hits our TP again, so we've taken these two trades for a total of plus 6R, and then I would be done for this day. But we'll just see if there's any more trades to take. So because I'm still bearish, I'm bullish because of the H1 raid and FVGs above. We also have this low that gets raided on the M5, and we'll just mark out if there was a breaker zone. So here it is, your M1 structure break to the top side. Your breaker zone would be this area, but because price was in a tight range, I would be using the raid candle. And we see that price breaks above and fails to come back to tag us in, so that's not a trade, but we get swerved on that one. And then we see that there's no more trades really. So here's 5 PM, there's no more M5 liquidity raids. So that means this day is done. So end of the day, just want to check your daily and H4 and H1 again, just delete a few of these. So yeah, nothing much changed except we filled the fair value gap. So we filled it over here. So once we filled it, we know that price is gonna just continue to be bullish. So here's a Thursday, and you will see that we have a H4 liquidity raid over here. So H4 liquidity raid, and we also have this H4 fair value gap over here. So because of this H4 liquidity raid and this H4 fair value gap, this would give me confidence to take shorts, as we've got two confluences. Then you just want to check your H1. So we've got H4 liquidity raid, and we also have this H1 liquidity raid. So a lot of confluences are here that price may want to go lower. So the H1 liquidity raid at 8 AM. So just go down to your 5-minute time frame and start at 7 AM. We actually think there's a long over here. So M5 liquidity raid at 7:20, 7:15. Go down to your 1-minute time frame. and we have our breaker zone over here, and your structure break to the top side over here. And you see we wouldn't have got tagged, but I would not have taken this trade anyway because of the H4 liquidity raid and the H4 fair value gap below, so I would not be taking that anyway even if we did get tagged. So here's the H4 liquidity raid, I'll just delete it, and here's the H1 liquidity raid, I'll delete that one as well. And then we have a M5 liquidity raid over here. That would mean I'll go to my 1 minute time frame again and mark out any setups for shorts. So here it is, the first one. Here's our breaker zone, and here's your structure low, and we eventually break below it over here. So that's our market structure break, and we get tagged in at 8:33, and I'm taking shorts from here. So it's 5.3, but like I always do, I'm rounding it up, and we see that we still get stopped out on this one actually. So yeah, this one's just a loss, so we'll get stopped out on that one. So this day will start as -1, but the setup will happen again, so you don't need to worry about losses, because then as soon as we have take this loss, we have another M5 liquidity raid, and because we're still extremely bearish, go down to your 1 minute time frame, and we would then mark out our breaker zone and market structure break. So here we've got our breaker zone, and our market structure break would be over here. So structure break, and then we got RTO straight away on the full breaker zone. Stops above, so 5.3 again, round up to 5.5, and you see that price hits our 3-hour TP. So this day starts with a -1 over here on the initial short, and then we get a setup straight away after. So that's our TP hit. So 2 trades on this day, 1 win, 1 loss, +2R. Can't really complain with that. And then I'm just still bearish on this day. I'm just still looking for shorts, but I've already taken my 2 trades really, so I'm not really looking to enter anything else here. But we'll just see how PA develop during the rest of the day. So M5 raid here at 12, but we're waiting to 1. M5 raid here, but because we are bearish because of the fair value gap below, we know that price is gonna go lower, or we want price to go lower anyway, so we're not really looking for longs here. And we also see that price is accumulating over here, so that's accumulation. This was during news, the price spiked up, so manipulation, and then you get your distribution to the downside, filling that FVG, but there are just no entries to actually get in on shorts. But we see that we have some clean AMD, so even if you were trying to take longs over here, hopefully you would have seen that this is actually accumulation, manipulation, and you got out, or you deleted your limits before the distribution happened. So if you're still a bit confused on that, then just watch the AMD video on the syllabus again. So end of the day would be over here at 5 p.m. No more shorts. Yeah, so there were no shorts that happened before 5 p.m. except these two, and we would have taken both for a total of 2 hours. So now we're on Friday. You wanna check your daily again. So yeah, this is a Thursday. I'll just mark it again. Fill the fair value gap. And we know that because there's a lot of liquidity in the FVG, price is likely to be bullish. So we've got, so price here is 3 days of bearishness. Fill the FVG, and then we're bullish on the Friday, which we could have expected. So then you want to go to your H4 time frame, and you see that we have a H4 liquidity raid over here. So just extra confluence that price is gonna go up. And here price starting to go up, starting flying at 6 a.m. So from 6 till 10, this is that candle. So then you want to go to your H1 time frame, and we see that at 7 a.m. we're still bullish. So we want to take any longs, but I'll just quickly mark out this H1 fair value gap also, so we don't need to keep going back to the H1 time frame. So 7 a.m. you're looking for longs. So we have a, yeah, so 7 a.m. starts here, so London open. We then have a M5 raid over here. Go down to your 1 minute time frame for your structure break and breaker zone. So mark out your structure break first. So fractal high before the raid. And then mark out your breaker zone. And you see that price broke above, did the RTO at 7:45. Get tagged in over here. So 3.1, so round it up to 3.5. And then your 3RTP gets hit. So we start Friday with a win. Then you want to go back to your 5 minute after you TP on that trade, and we're just looking for more liquidity rates. So we have one over here. So we've got one over here, but because price was extremely bullish over here, we actually leave this fair value gap over here on the H1. So we would expect price to at least come into the fair value gap before we get another push to the top side. So even though we've got a liquidity raid over here, we'll just see if it actually sets up anyway. Here we have a raid, breaker zone, MSB. So some people might have taken this, but we know that this fair value gap has a lot of liquidity in it, so we want to get a reaction from it. So we're not taking a trade just above a fair value gap that hasn't even been touched yet, so we would not be taking that trade. So after that, so 10 a.m. starts here. We're not on charts until 1. So 1 p.m. we'll start over here. You wanna just check your H4 and your H1. Nothing's really changed. Yeah, nothing really changed except we actually get a reaction from the fair value gap over here at 11 and 12. Start pushing from it. but we would want at least 50% filled, which would be from this area. So we would still be bearish because of the fair value gap. So when 1 p.m. hits, 1 p.m. hits, you're looking for shorts. So fractal high, no raid, fractal high, no raid, fractal high, we get a M5 liquidity raid. Go down to your 1 minute time frame, and we see that here's the highest point. So here's your breaker zone from this candle to the highest point. Your market structure break, so you break below, get our RTO. So here's our entry. So 1.6, we need 2 pips minimum. And you see that price hits our TP. So price hits our TP. I'm always just aiming for 3 hours per trade, but if you do your TPs based on context and you held until the FVG, this trade was a potential 10 hour, but 3 hours is enough for us, well for me anyway. So once that trade hits TP at around here 210, I'm just looking for more shorts. So we have a M5 liquidity raid over here again. Back to your 1 minute time frame, and we see that this is the highest point. Or this is a double top, so we can use either this as a breaker zone, or we could use this as a breaker zone. Wait, I'll just check the high on each. So the high here is 698, and the high here is 698 as well. So yeah, it's a double top. So it just depends on you on which one you would want to use as a breaker zone. But yeah, I would have used this one as it's smaller, so we have a better risk to reward compared to this one over here. But you see that price creates a breaker zone. We have our market structure break to the downside over here. So price breaks below, rejects from the FVG, but we need at least 50% filled, like I said. Price RTOs over here, and we have another short position we could take. So 3.9, just want to round it up to 4, and then you see price hits our TP. So we would have taken 2 shorts on this day, both 3R each, so a total of 6R. And then we have a H1 liquidity raid inside the FVG, and although we haven't hit 50% of the FVG, what that tells us is that price wants to go higher, or the price might start going higher because there's a lot of liquidity being taken. So H1 liquidity raid over here, and we see it's also a M5 liquidity raid. Then you can go to your 1 minute time frame, and here's the lowest point, this candle. So we'll just mark out this raid. Here's the lowest point, and here's your breaker zone, and here's your structure break to the top. So you could have entered this long as well, rejecting from the H1 fair value gap and the H1 liquidity raid. So we could have taken these longs as well. So yeah, on this day, potential 3 trades which we could have taken. Those all 3 of those were winners. don't think there's any losses today actually. Yeah, so from here we're bearish until this area, until this happens, and then we're bullish. Yeah, so no losses on the Friday. So all in all, this week had a lot of wins. Had a win over here on Friday, 3 wins over here, and then if you actually did take this long, then that would be your 1 loss. But the losses don't really matter when you have a lot of wins per week. Like on this day we only had 1 win and 1 loss. On this day we had 2 wins. On this day we had 1, 2, 3, 4 wins. And on Monday we had 1 loss. So the RR will always play out because we do aim for 3 R per trade. So yeah, you don't really need to be hitting every single trade. Just make sure you grab like 2 or 3 wins per week, and that'll be more than enough to grow your account. So yeah, this was the week from 19th April to the 23rd of April, and yeah, another successful week. Just trading a simple strategy, just using raids, fair value gaps, H4, H1, M5 and M1 time frames. So yeah, if you got any questions regarding what we just went over in this video, then just let me know in the Discord channel or on private message, and I'll be more than happy to help. So yeah, I'll catch you all in the Discord server.